Not many people can say they are an elite pass rusher in the National Football League. Even fewer can claim their siblings are also premier pass rushers. Yet, we live in a time in which this exact scenario exists in the NFL. And not just one instance, but two separate families. On today's episode of Football Ancestry, we take a look at the Watt family and the Bosa family in order to uncover which football family is the cream of the crop when it comes to NFL defensive pass rushers. Welcome to another installment of Football Ancestry. This episode is our first focusing on a football family comparison. In the past, we've looked at team history and coaching comparisons, but today we finally get to the third pillar of this channel, football families. In order to compare the Bosa and the Watt families, we will be looking at Joey and Nick Bosa versus JJ and TJ Watt to determine which is superior on the gridiron. We will take a look at three categories: family prestige in their NFL bloodlines, stat comparisons including sacks to represent pass rush, tackles for loss to represent run stopping, and special plays such as defensive touchdowns, safeties, and turnovers that help measure a player's playmaking ability. And lastly, take a look at the awards that they've won that measure a player's legacy. So without further ado, make sure to hit subscribe and let's jump into the details. First up, let's take a glance at the family trees of each family. First, we have the Watt family. The Watt brothers were the children of John and Connie Watt, but it is JJ's grandfather who he points to instilling his work ethic and family pride. JJ explains that for all of Watt's high school games, his grandfather stood up on the top row of the bleachers right in front of the press box so JJ could easily find him every week, and that his grandfather was often the loudest voice in the stands. Watt said his grandfather's dad was an alcoholic, and that because of that, his grandfather wasn't proud of his family name. His grandfather worked his entire life to change the reputation of the family name, something that Watt seriously takes to heart, and in memory of his grandfather, works very hard every day to better the Watt name and inspire on and off the field. JJ Watt's brothers followed his footsteps, all having played at the same high school and the same university, which leads us to the most important part of the tree, well, for our purposes anyways, which is whether they have NFL heritage in their bloodlines. Each name listed with a blue outline around the text has played in the NFL. For the Watt family, this is only the three brothers, JJ Watt, Derek Watt, and TJ Watt. Now, let's compare that to the Bosa family tree. Immediately, you can see the more blue names listed, indicating more family members who had played in the NFL. The list includes direct and distant family to Joey and Nick Bosa, starting with their father, John Bosa, who was an NFL defensive end first-round draft pick for the Miami Dolphins. This puts the Bosa family in exclusive company as one of the only two families to have three members be drafted in the first round of the NFL draft, the other being none other than the Manning family. But the Bosa football roots go even further back on their mother's side. Their grandmother, Mary, had two children, Cheryl Bosa and Eric Kumero. I probably mispronounced that name as I do often on this show, but just bear with me here and we'll get through this together. She had those two children with her first husband, Palmer Pyle, an NFL offensive guard who played with the Colts, Vikings, and Raiders in the 1960s, who also had a brother who played in the NFL as well during those times. Mary's second husband, Ernest Kumero, helped raise Cheryl and her brother Eric. Eric Kumero is the uncle to Joey and Nick Bosa. Eric himself was a first-round draft pick by the Miami Dolphins, just like John Bosa was. Eric's son, the Bosa's cousin, is Jake Kumero, an undrafted wide receiver who played for the Packers. It's clear, looking at both the family trees, that the Bosas get the edge when it comes to football pedigree and heritage. But now, let's look at the stats. Which set of brothers produce better on the field? Let's look at the Watt brothers first. From initial glance, we notice that JJ Watt has significantly more stats, but that's because he's played in the NFL much longer than his brother has. But when we break it down by a per season average, it tells a different story. Although JJ has an amazing 101 sacks, he averages about 10.1 per season, as compared to TJ Watt, whose 49.5 sacks average out to about 12.4 sacks per season. So while TJ has averaged more over his shorter career, both remain equally as impressive. JJ for his sustained success and TJ for his explosive young success. Both averaging double-digit sacks every season makes them a dangerous pass rush duo. Against the run, JJ has an advantage, averaging 17.2 tackles for loss per season as compared to TJ's 14.8. When it comes to creating turnovers, TJ averages nearly double that of JJ at 5.3 per season, which probably has to do with TJ playing as a linebacker compared to JJ Watt as a defensive end, but nonetheless, TJ has the advantage in that category. Lastly, in terms of special plays, JJ has the advantage, having 1 safety and 3 touchdowns in his career. But the main point of this exercise isn't to compare the two brothers against each other, but instead, how they stack up against the Bosa brothers. The careers of the Bosas are still rather short, so the overall statistics will look much lower. Instead, I'll compare them to the per season averages that we were earlier. Again, one could argue that the short sample size of their careers devalues the per season averages that they have, but I think that those stats are what holds the most value, and it's frankly all that we have to go off of, so that's what we're going to be comparing. And to be fair, it's only a portion of our overall comparison between the two families, between the heritage, the awards, and the stats. Okay, with that being said, let's look at Joey Bosa, who averages 9.5 sacks per season, which is close to the double-digit mark that the Watt brothers both hit. We could say the same about Nick Bosa, who got 9 sacks in his rookie year and missed almost the entirety of his second year. So instead of limiting his average to 4.5 over 2 years, we'll just stick with the 9 sacks per year that he got his rookie year. And even if we do that, the two Bosa brothers both just barely missed the double-digit sack threshold, and therefore the sacks per year go slightly in favor of the Watt brothers. When it comes to tackle for loss, Joey averages 13.8 tackles for loss per season, while Nick has 16 in a little over 1 season of play. Both those numbers again are behind the Watt brothers. Both Bosas have yet to record a touchdown or a safety, so the automatic winner for that category is JJ Watt, who at least produced something in that category. When it comes to turnovers, Nick has 3 and Joey averages 1 per season. These again rank lower than that of both the Watt brothers. So in terms of the stat comparison between the two football families, the advantage goes to the Watts. Family pedigree, advantage Bosas. Field stats, advantage Watts. Now, onto the third and tie-breaking final category, awards and legacy. All 4 players began building their legacies from the very beginning, each earning a spot on the NFL All-Rookie team. However, only Joey and Nick Bosa won Defensive Rookie of the Year, so the Bosas lead early in this category. The Pro Bowls are roughly even considering the length of each player's career. Nick Bosa with 1, Joey with 3, TJ Watt with 3, and JJ Watt with 5 Pro Bowls. However, it's the consistent first-team All-Pro appearances and impressive Defensive Player of the Year awards that pushed the Watt brothers past the Bosas in terms of legacy. TJ has made first-team All-Pro 1 time, while JJ has been on the list 5 times. JJ also contributed an astounding 3 Defensive Player of the Year awards, and to put the cherry on top, JJ Watt is also the recipient of the Walter Payton Man of the Year award in 2017. So with all that being said and done, the Watt brothers have the advantage when it comes to awards and NFL legacy. In summary, the Bosa brothers had the better family pedigree, but the Watt brothers were able to bring home the better stats and the better award turnout, giving them the overall edge when answering the question of who is the most feared defensive family. Although both extremely impressive, the Watts take home the crown, at least for now. It'll be fun to watch how these two sets of brothers continue to dominate on Sundays and push each other to be the very best. With that being said, I welcome you to subscribe to the channel to keep notified of future videos, and as always, please feel free to leave a comment down below with any suggestions or corrections or feedback that you feel is necessary. I would love to hear it. All information in this video come from Pro Football Reference, Wikipedia, the San Francisco Chronicle, and Chargers.com. Thank you very much for watching.